Hi, Rebels. This is Charlie, your host of the Salon Rebel podcast. Today, I have a really interesting guest that is pretty unlikely to have on a salon podcast, but she has a really important message. And with 2 children myself, I find that her work is really important to be shared on every single podcast we can possibly get her on. Her name is Kristi McVee, and she is an ex-child abuse detective. And I absolutely love what she's doing for us. And thank you so much for putting yourself on the line for other people's families. And I just think, we need more of you sharing and protecting our children. And yeah, please tell me a bit about yourself and what you do today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Who would have thought in February when we met, you'd be like, come on to my podcast.
Yes.
So I was a West Australian police officer for 10 years. I joined the police in 2010. Within 12 months of being in the police, I became a specialist child interviewer. So my job was to interview children who had been abused and sexually abused mostly. And then from there, I became a detective specialising in child abuse investigations. So from, in that 10-year period, I was, interviewing children, getting their evidence, then investigating the cases, charging the offenders. And then towards the end of my career, but through the career, I was also managing child sex offenders when they were released from prison. So I guess you could say I've had a lot of experience with regards to what child sexual abuse is, what it isn't, the myths, all of the facts, and also, what predatory red flag behaviours to watch out for, etc. And when I left in 2020, it's a little bit of a sad story, but I ended up with PTSD and severe anxiety.
No shit.
And, as you could imagine.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really because of the cases or the children that I was, trying to help. It was more so because the system is so broken. And when you are a police officer coming in after the fact, after all of the harm's done, and then, the offender doesn't ever get charged, or they're sentenced to such short sentencing. And it was really gut-wrenching. It was heartbreaking, dealing with children who had been abused. And children are so resilient. And parents were constantly saying, I just wish I had known. I wish I could have had it stopped this. The whole family is in upheaval and turmoil and, trauma. And that was the part that really was hard to deal with. So when I got PTSD, my daughter, who was nearly 12 at the time, a little side note to that is when I joined the police, she was only 2 years old. And so I was a toddler mum going into the police and dealing with child sexual abuse cases, etc. And then, she was growing up with me in the police and I was coming home after cases and situations, hugging her tighter and talking to her about, body safety and protecting her and how to, and protecting everyone basically. And then she said to me, Mum, I don't want you to do this job anymore. You're not the mum I remember. And
oh my God.
I just broke down and
How
I went
old
in
was
she was 11 and a half, nearly 12 years
God.
old. And I just went in the next day and resigned. So,
wow.
Yeah. So
That's heavy. Yeah.
It is heavy. And it's when what you do, and it was such an important part of my personality, I guess. I felt so responsible for the kids that I was helping. And that's partially why my mental health struggled. But my daughter was more important. My family was more important. So when I left in 2020, I didn't know what I was going to do and I didn't have any clue, but I had this, I guess, burning desire, this soul's purpose to educate people on what I knew, because I knew parents didn't know what they needed to know about child sexual abuse. So I started talking about it. I wrote a book about it, and then here we are today. And this is my full-time job, educating parents and everyone.
When did you start that? Because that wasn't too long ago, was it?
Well, it was about 3 years ago when my book came out. And look, the book was sort of like let's just write some stuff down and see what happens. And 60,000 words later and, 2 years, I had a whole book. And I did do some educating in schools, teaching kids about online safety and cyber safety, but that's really not my, like, I love talking about that stuff,
Mhm.
but I realized that our kids actually don't need this education, parents do.
Yeah.
Not just with the cyber safety, but the online, the personal safety, the body safety. Our parents are the ones who are struggling to understand. Kids tend to get this easier, and they get so much safety lessons, or so many safety lessons from so many different places.
Mhm.
And parents are the ones who aren't having those conversations. So about 3 years ago, when the book was released, was when I started posting on TikTok and posting on socials, and over the last probably 12, 18 months, it's just grown and grown and grown. And now I have some online resources, and also I go out to, well, sometimes I go out, but most of my stuff is online. So webinars for early childhood education centres, for schools, for PNCs, for parenting groups, sporting groups, talking about identifying red flags and grooming signs, and how to have conversations with kids to keep them safe.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And how do you feel doing that as opposed to what you were doing before?
Look, it's a double-edged sword. I think sometimes I struggle with the fact that I don't have the same amount of power to be able to protect kids, but
Right.
I wasn't protecting kids in the police. That it was a belief that people think that police come and protect you and come and help you, but they don't do as much as we wish they did. They are governed by the laws, the legislation, and by the time police come in, something's already happened. And so they're not actually preventing, abuse. They're not doing what I hoped I was doing.
Mhm.
So, and when I did charge someone, a family's already been turned upside down. A child's life's already been irrevocably changed. So what I do now by educating people, sometimes it's not going to, stop abuse, but there's going to be a reduction in harm,
Yeah.
because children I was interviewing, the ones that didn't have this education and they didn't have a safe space and they didn't have parents who talked about it, they were the ones who went on for years with abuse happening. And the ones that did have that safe space, did have the education, spoke up quicker. And so
Right.
the harm was reduced, and the long-term, lifelong effects of that were reduced.
Yeah. It's a pretty scary realization that the police aren't going to save you,
No.
and only like what we do and how we act and the education that we have for ourselves and our families is what's going to help more than
Yeah.
depending on someone else to
Yeah.
rescue your family.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that I find really important, and when I thought about my own salon and was seeing your work, is it's not just about like the fact that I have 2 little girls, but we employ young women and men, but in our salon we're ladies only, so we employ lots of young women. And as young as my youngest employee right now is 13 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to know, how can I not protect my team, but look out for warning signs,
Mm-hmm.
so that if something was to happen or if there's something going on with my team, that I can make sure that I have the resources, that I can guide them, that I know, how can I talk to my team to know that there is a safe place, that if they need to reach out,
Mm-hmm.
is there warning signs, even in, the girls that are, 13 to 20 years old, or I mean, even older than that, somebody might have had, past experience. And how can we open that conversation up, and so that people feel safe, and like what can we look out for
Yeah.
within our teams?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing I want to highlight is that 28.5% of adult Australians over the age of 18 have been sexually abused. So nearly 1 in 3 adult Australians have been sexually abused as a child.
Which is wild, because I say I have a team of 15. That means like 4 of them have probably been sexually abused.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why we have this belief that doesn't happen in our communities or it's someone else. It's not us. It's not our families. And the thing is that most people don't actually understand how prevalent it is and how much it happens in every family, in every place. When I go and speak in, whether it be to chaplains in, Anglicare, or to school teachers or, early childhood educators, there's always people in that group that come to me afterwards and say, I was sexually abused and I've never told anyone. I had a 70-something-year-old chaplain come to me and said, yeah, I was sexually abused as a child and I have never told anyone. And the thing is that we might be, your team might be young, they might be, not parents yet, but they'll be parents eventually. And most people's trauma of sexual abuse or childhood sexual trauma comes up when they become parents, because we spend a lot of time trying to forget and move on. Yeah. And then when we become parents, it triggers those memories, triggers that, because we don't want that to happen to our kids. And a lot of people don't realize the association with becoming a parent and your own trauma coming back. So for your own team and for people, having these conversations is so vitally important, because it opens up the opportunity to heal before they become parents and also provide a safe space. However, when we do that, we need to be mindful that we need to be a little bit trauma informed, because we don't want someone who we open up the space in the room to them and all of a sudden they're just trauma dumping on everyone around them, and it creates a vicarious trauma response. We all, because I don't know about you, but when someone tells me a story, I visualize it. And that's possibly why I had PTSD, right? So I visualize the story. I can see it in my brain.
And I just had a hard time about your daughter telling you that you're not the same mom anymore, like that was hard. So I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So I guess from my perspective is, there will be people in your team who have been abused, and they will probably it will be great for you to have that, put yourself in a position where you can have those conversations. I think the best way you could deal with it is to ensure that they know that they've got a supportive network. If have a conversation, hey, I just interviewed this detective on my podcast, bring it up in the lunchroom and just say, she made me realize that, possibly some of us have been victims or survivors. And, if anyone's ready to talk, I'm here to help you. Or have an EAP, an employee assistance program, where they can get free access to a psychologist or a counsellor, having those supports in place.
What is an EAP? I've not heard of that.
Yeah, so in Australia it's not compulsory, but employers can employ an EAP program or a service, which is it's counselling and psychology for your staff that you can provide for them. So it's a cost to you as a business owner, but it's so that you can offer support to your staff if and when something happens. Usually it's like 6 sessions and it's subsidized by you.
Yep. I love that. It's funny, have been talking about employing somebody, say an HR or some kind of external coach or somebody that can be that other person for somebody to talk to when they don't necessarily want to tell their boss, maybe their personal staff or what they're going through.
It's really important to have that third party, because a lot of people don't. It's so hard. We know that it's really hard to ask for help as well, and I think also talking as an employer, talking about your own, hey, I had to go and see someone, something I heard or saw, or I'm going through something at the moment, normalising the conversation around mental health and seeking help and help seeking. Strangely, well, not strangely, she's my daughter. My daughter had a friend recently who was having struggling with mental health, was talking about suicide, and my daughter's 17 now. She's nearly 18 and she's got her license, and she went and picked her up and took her for a drive and sort of sat with her, and she could see that she was escalating, and so she took her straight to hospital and she talked her into going and seeking help. So the thing is that we don't need to help or fix people. We don't need to fix people. We just need to show them how to get help.
Right.
And so that's part of the solutions for our staff as well, not being able to have those conversations and hold that space, but not taking it on ourselves, and also being able to go, here's how you can get help. Yeah. And having those resources available for your staff.
Which I think is exactly the problem is, like, I'll be in an office. I often say that the tissues are for me as well, because I end up crying a lot, especially when somebody's telling me something emotional and it resonates and anyways, but then being able to go, like, having some knowledge of what to do next, because it's all well and good to have that trauma dumping back and forth and having a hug, but then you often don't know what to do. You might say, hey, like, have you tried going to a counselor? But you really don't have, like, sometimes I don't have the resources all lined up for me to go, this is a great place that you can call.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
having that information, I think, would be really helpful.
Definitely. And, I always tell parents when they want to talk to their kids about, whether it be, someone who might harm them or, just opening those questions or online safety or opening that conversation up. I always say to them, just use me as an excuse. Like, hey, I met this woman. I met this ex-detective. She talked about this. Have you ever heard of anything like that? Do any of your friends ever have any issues online that they've told you about? You don't have to go, did you, and look at them in the eyeballs and say, did you have problems? Have you talked to a stranger online? You use their friendships and their...
Right.
Hey, like, I heard that 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused before they're 18. Did you guys know that? Like, that's wild to me. Have you ever heard any of those stats before? And, over 90% of child sexual abuse is by someone known to the child. It's not a stranger. Like, when I was growing up, it was a man in a white van, giving you lollies and flashing you.
We're still scared of white vans.
I know. So, like, this is the thing that we can just... I don't know. For me, it seems really simple, but it's not. I know it's not easy to start these conversations, but just throwing out some of those things, or, hey, I heard this on the radio today, or I saw this on the TV today.
I think the biggest thing I find with your content is realizing that those figures of that 90% of the time, it is somebody that you know. And I think that's really hard for people to think, because you think, oh, I love all my friends and family.
Yeah.
Everybody's so nice. Or like, I've got such a great friend group.
Yeah.
What can you look out for, like, as a parent? Like, what can we look out for?
Yeah. So, if you've never heard the term grooming,
I have, because I follow your content.
So, grooming isn't brushing your hair or, trimming your beard or whatever. It's, grooming is I have my own podcast, and Anna Sonoda came onto my podcast and she said grooming is a perverse form of courtship. So a perverse form of courtship. So it's, love bombing child and parents. It's asking kids to keep secrets. It's initiating touch that the child hasn't asked for. They haven't asked for a hug, but they're hugging them. It's, maybe being, I just want to spend some quality time with my little guy. It's, finding ways to get alone with children. Those are those are the biggest red flags. But, I also like to quote an FBI profiler who said that anyone who wants to spend more time with your child than you do, that's a red flag. So, it's people who they just love kids. They talk about how much they love kids. And, there are people out there who really genuinely do love spending time with kids. It makes them feel young, etc. But, I always, in my own parenting with my own daughter, I always just went, okay, let's assess. With my own friendship groups and the people that were around my daughter, hey, let's just check. There was a checklist in my mind of, are they overly generous with my daughter? Are they giving her lots of presents or gifts, or, are they asking to spend quality time or one-on-one time with her all the time? Are they forcing contact, physical contact with her? Is she the one initiating it, or are they the ones initiating it? Do they stop when they're told to stop? Or, are they do I ever find them behind closed doors with kids? I don't see why any adult should be behind a closed door with a child. Yeah. Are they, some of the stuff that I saw in my job was, trying to get children nude. So either through toileting, nappies, changing, or, let's all run around in the backyard nude sort of thing, or let's all have a shower together. Yeah. It should be the child initiating any kind of contact, but at the same time, sometimes children are groomed to think that that's normal. So it's just something you have to be mindful and assess. So they're just some of the first things on top of my mind. Adults who also encourage secret keeping. So don't tell mom, don't tell dad. Yeah. I get really grumpy with grandparents who, don't tell mom I gave you a lolly, because that's how groomers do it. Right. So I'm like, you do realize that you're actually helping groomers abuse your kid, helping abusers abuse. Yeah. So stop keeping secrets, own up to your, your treat giving.
Yeah.
So
Foot the dentist bill.
yeah. How about you
Keeping all
say
this-
no
yeah.
once in a while, grandparents? I mean, I had these arguments with all my, and like also, my in-laws and my parents were really great, but they were the same. Like they would give her stuff that I was like, oh gosh, she's about to have dinner, or send her back full of sugar, or a grandfather would like not stop when she said stop tickling, and so I'd have to stand in and put a boundary in place and go, hey, she said stop. We're teaching her about body safety. Let's just, stop when she says that's. And she got really good. It was so funny. When she was really little, about 3 or 4, she would say, stop it, I don't like it, and put her hand in a stop sign.
Yeah.
And then when she got to about 10, she said, I don't give consent to you tickling me. So, and so that was like, whew, because she had, I had been teaching her about body safety, consent, that people and adults should always respect your no when you say no. And so she got pretty good. And at 17, she's amazing at it. She's just like, I didn't give consent. Even with photos and videos,
Yes.
we can teach our kids that when we take a photo, hey, do you mind if I take a photo? Is it okay if I post it on my socials? And then they then do it with their friends as well. So we're everything we're doing is not just in the moment at 3 or 4 years old. It's for their whole lives.
Right. With your 12-year-olds now, like does she have social media?
The 17-year-old?
Oh, sorry, she's 17 now.
Yeah, she didn't have social media until she was 13.
Okay.
And it's quite funny because I was talking to her about body safety the other day because a parent said to me, oh, they're too young at 2 and 3 to learn about body safety. And I went and asked her, I was like, what's your opinion on this? And I said, is it okay? I had also pre-asked her if it was okay to record her answer.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she was like, no, of course. Like, they don't know any different. You're not talking about abuse. Like, she was right getting revved up. And then she was like, yeah, and, and I asked her, I said, well, what's one bit of advice you would give parents? And I'm going to post it this week. And she goes, don't cave. And I said, what do you mean don't cave? And she goes, don't cave on social media. Let your kids have a childhood. And I was like, well, you hated me for not letting you have social media. And she goes, yeah, but now I actually thank you for it.
Yeah.
And she's 17 now. She's been saying that for a couple of years. But, she said to me, my friends at 11 and 12 were on TikTok and social media, and they were worried about what they looked like, and they were wearing crop tops, and their clothes were, not age appropriate because that's what the trend was. She said, I was wearing unicorn tops and playing with my Schleich and my Little Pony until I was 13.
I love that.
And so she said, I wasn't worried about wearing what everyone else was wearing because I wasn't watching the trends on social media.
Yeah, amazing. That must have been really hard. Did you just not give her a mobile at all? Or?
She did have a mobile, but it was locked down, and that was because she was actually catching a bus and stuff. And again, like I understand, and this is the thing about, I hope that this comes across in my socials, is that I'm not like bagging out parents for parenting the way they want to parent. I don't try and tell people how to do their job as a parent. What I do say is, hey, have you considered this? Have you thought about this? Can you work with your child to do this better? Is there a way you can do this? This is why I wouldn't do that. That's because I think, it's not my job to tell people how to parent. And I think it's also, parenting is a hard job. I know in the last 17 years, nearly 18 years, I have probably cried so much about the fact that I feel like a terrible parent, and I didn't know how to deal with situation. And I was a police officer working in this space for 10 years, considered a child safety expert, and I still have my moments where I'm like, oh, have I done the right thing here?
Yeah, I think we're all doing that at home. Like, it's just so hard to be I don't think, is there anybody out there that actually believes that they are the best mom?
Well, not if you've got trauma from your own childhood, that's for sure. But no one gave us there's no guidebooks to kids.
No.
And you can have 2 kids and they can be completely completely different kids, different behaviors, different, beliefs. I think Gabor Mate says no 2 children have the same childhood. Doesn't matter if they have the same parents.
Right.
And it's true.
Love that.
Yeah, because they come from completely different experiences, different. So I think from my perspective, as parents, all we can do is our best. And I think, Maggie Dent, parenting experts say, 30%. You just have to be present and, the perfect parent for 30% of the time. The rest of the time, it's okay.
It's funny how they remember, though, that like one time that you yelled.
Yes. I had a conversation with my own kid about that the other day. I said, look, I know that when you get in like to your 30s, you're probably going to go, remember when you wouldn't let me do this and that, and you're going to have trauma and you're going to say I created trauma in your life. I said, when that comes, I'll sit down with you and I'll accept responsibility for it.
It's funny how like you'll say something to your kids and I'll say something, I'll be like, oh, that's sticking for life. Like you're just so worried about everything. And then it's even like myself, what I think about that sticks with me from my parents, it's probably not the things that they thought they did. It's I don't know, these weird micro traumas that were not that big of a deal, but stuck with me more than the big fights or anything like that. It'll be some little thing that my dad said, some little comment that meant nothing, but lasted my entire life.
Yeah.
So you really can't win. So
I think the real for me personally, like I think what I saw with, child abuse victims and survivors, the thing that stuck with them was when they tried to speak up and no one listened.
Yeah.
That not being validated, not being heard, and not being supported and loved, those things stuck with them. It wasn't the fact that they actually were sexually abused. It was when they tried to tell someone.
They didn't believe them.
Yeah, or they were blamed and shamed for what happened to them. And as a child, you can't.
I heard you say the percent of that. What is the percent of people that people don't believe them? It was something
It's
outrageous.
1 in 3 adults in Australia don't believe children when they disclose child sexual abuse.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's because there's this perception that children lie about it, and when actual fact it's like children don't have anything to lose when they disclose, right? All they have, they do. They have their trust in their adults, their safe adults, but they don't realize that at the time. They're just trying to get safe. They're just trying to make it stop. And this is the thing, like I interviewed so many kids who were abused by parents, sexually abused by a parent, and most of the time the child would say, I just want it to stop. I don't want them to go to jail. Are they going to go to jail? This is what they would ask me all the time. Are they going to go to jail? And I would say, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what's going to happen next. We're just doing our part to make sure that it can stop and you can be safe again.
Yeah.
And so, you can love the person who hurts you. Yeah. This is the thing about the complex issue about child sexual abuse or abuse in general, neglect, physical abuse, domestic violence, all of it. We can still love the people that hurt us the most. And so for kids, they just want it to stop. And I think it's not until they become an adult that pain, that lack of support, that lack of love, and the fact that this person who's meant to love them the most has done the most harm, it becomes, can become very angry and upset about what's happened to them. And granted, that's very valid. So, I think with regards to kids, they just want it to stop. They just want to be safe. They just want to be able to have a normal family where both mum and dad or whoever is their family loves them.
This episode is sponsored by the BizTool Boutique because running a salon is hard enough. Your salon should give you freedom, profit, and a team that make you proud to be a salon owner. That's exactly why I created the BizTool Boutique. Simple, done-for-you systems you can download and implement straight away. Not another long-winded course that you'll never finish. Just the exact tools I use today in my own highly profitable salon. From pricing and profit share frameworks that lock in growth to team management tools that give you back your time and retail mindsets that finally stick, every program is designed to fit into your busy life and actually work. Because let's be real, salon owners don't need more on their to-do list. What you need are fast, proven systems that free you up, better cash flow, and more consistency. So you and your team can finally enjoy the business that you've all worked so hard for. Head to the link in the show notes to check out the tools that we've built just for salon owners. I guess where some people worry about their kids lying because kids do say funny things, and you think this is such a big deal that probably people don't want it to. They don't want it to be true, no. Right? Because of what that means for your family to go through that.
True. Very true.
I had an incident earlier this year where I had to make a decision in my business because of something that had happened. And after I had seen it happen, like I didn't want to address it at first.
Yeah.
Because
it's a normal reaction.
And because of what happened after. And I did go through hell after it. But I had to stand my ground on it. And even though it's a completely different situation, that fear of like what comes next and how uprooting that can be for your life. But at the same time, sometimes like making those decisions and actually, grabbing your balls and doing that thing, and later down the track, like you'll never respect yourself for that. Like how many parents would be out there that didn't listen to their kids, that is sitting on their shoulders, that their kids have said something and they never did anything about it. Like wearing that weight for the rest of your life would surely be so much worse than if you had actually listened, to your kids. And but I can understand the people just wanting to push those things away.
It takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to do what needs to be done. And I think for a lot of parents in those moments, especially when, so many of the abusers that abuse children are a family member.
Yeah.
Or a close family friend or someone that you've relied on because you thought that they were someone you could trust with your child. And if you were a survivor or a victim of sexual abuse or some form of abuse as a child, you are going to have a visceral response to being told that your own child has gone through it. Because for most parents, they think that they're doing, like, I've done everything I can, I'm protecting my kid. And then it happens. And it kind of, sometimes it's not actually their fault because their body locks down, their brain shuts down, they go into protection mode. I'm not saying that that's not basically freeing them of responsibility, but some people actually, because of how often generational trauma goes through families, family lines, it happens time and time again. And that's why it's so important to break it, because if we don't speak up, and again, let's put it back onto the person who's harming. It's not the child's fault that it's happened. It's not the parent who hasn't harmed, or the person who's, the support person that hasn't harmed the child, the protective person, whatever. It's the person that's doing the harming. And that is their responsibility. So when we look at these things, it's not that child didn't make that choice to be in that situation. And going back to what you were saying about, when you're told something and children, potentially fibbing, there's ways to talk to kids. I used to say to my daughter, you'll never get in trouble for telling the truth. But if you do not tell the truth, then it could cause, and I used to explain to her all of the potential outcomes for her, or for us as a family. And the thing is I think we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard of our kids can handle this stuff. Our kids can handle the truth of what could happen. Yeah. And, they are so much more, like I said at the start, resilient than we realize. Yes. And we don't have to talk about abuse to actually talk about abuse either. We can use words like inappropriate, unsafe, private parts, etc. And we're not saying, hey, if anyone sexually abuses you, well, what does that actually mean to a kid or a young person? So if anyone ever touches your privates or shows you their privates or asks you to take a photo of your privates, then, it's not your fault. You can come and tell me. And, because we've already taught them about what private parts are and that we shouldn't show them, touch them or take photos of them for any reason to anyone else. They're our privates. They're always going to be ours. No one else is allowed. That's kind of reiterating that. And kids don't get scared by this stuff. It's so crazy. What they do get scared is when they feel unsafe and they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. So you have, opening up those conversations, you have these really cool cards that you are getting made, but you can buy them online at the moment.
They're a digital resource at the moment, yeah.
So parents can buy these to have the conversations and know how to talk to their kids and what questions they can ask or things that they can say. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're conversation starters that start the conversation and give you like the language to use for different age groups as they get better, as they get older, and the language starts developing. Similar to when my daughter said, "Stop it, I don't like it," and then now she's like, "I don't give you consent to tickle me."
Yeah. What does she say now?
Oh, she still uses consent.
Yeah.
Even when if I try and sneak a photo of her, because she doesn't want to have photos with me anymore, and if I try and sneak a photo, which is not obviously it's usually a joke, she's like, "Are you taking a photo of me? I don't give consent to photos." I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So, always I'm like, "Can you please have a photo with your mum?" And so, just always like expressing that they can have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
Having a voice is so important. We all should have one. We all have one. We all should be able to use it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I can't wait till you get your actual products out, because I want the physical products in my house. How old do you start having these conversations? 1.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Well, it's from birth, but what people sometimes worry about is like, "Oh my gosh, I'm talking about this." No, what we're actually doing is we're laying the foundations for respect and bodily autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're little, at 1 year old, we're not asking them for consent to change their nappy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We're just saying, "Hey, I'm changing your nappy now. I'm putting this cream on." We're explaining what we're doing.
Right.
And we're always doing, whilst we're explaining it to them, we're always, telling them about their body and how amazing it is. We're giving them like this encouragement and empowerment. And then when they get to the age where they can verbalize, "Hey, I'm going to change your nappy now," or when they're, toilet training, "Hey, would you like to try and do this today, or would you like me to do it today?" We're giving them those options. When I get a lot of parents say, "Oh, when do I stop showering with my kids?" And I'm like, when the child wants to stop, because you've given them the respect and you've taught them about consent. "Hey, you want to shower today, or you want to do it on your own? Up to you, mate." Having that conversation now and again, going, whenever you're ready to stop having showers, that's cool, or bath with your brother.
I would
or
like
sister.
my kids to stop coming into the shower or
Most
bath
people
with me.
say
I'm like,
that.
"I don't give you consent."
You're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sick of it." Yeah. Like you're hiding the shower from your kids so that they, "Oh, damn it."
And they're like, "Great, it's time for a shower." And you're
they're
like,
stripping off, and you're like, "I just want private time." But that's another conversation you can have with your with your little people, is like, sometimes people want private time. This is my private time.
Yeah.
And, it's so important to give them the language, because that's what groomers and abusers use. They use their lack of knowledge, their naivety, and they gamify it, especially for little ones.
Do you feel, because of putting yourself out there on social media, is that worry you at all about, I just think about the predators and that you are really, you're a face to this and calling them out. Does that worry you at all?
It did at the start. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not something that I have thought about, but and being a face to anything, it's put me in, obviously, in a position where people are like, "You're amazing," and then a subsection of people, very small subsection of people, are like, "You're a loser. You're you were too bad of a police officer," and they criticize my police.
Are you serious?
Yeah. You have to just go through my comments, the amount of crap I get.
Wow. There's trolls at every level, I guess.
At every level. And, thankfully I've got some really great followers who I've stopped commenting. Sometimes it's hilarious. If you were a fly on the wall, you would see me like, delete, because it's not worth my time and energy. And all I'm doing is I'm not focusing on my mission. My mission is so important. So, and I think I might have said this to you when we first met. Like, this is my soul's purpose. It was so obvious to me after when I was recovering from my PTSD and stuff. Because when I was in that moment, I was just like, I didn't want to be here anymore. And then when I was much clearer and my mental health was much clearer, I was like, I know why I've gone through all of this.
Yeah.
So, and I've just followed that all this way. But yeah, I get trolls. I get all of these people following. I'm sure I've got sex offenders following me, and that's okay. Hi, sex offenders. But The cool thing is, and I think it's cool, is that I've had some of them reach out to me asking for help.
Wow.
And they've asked for resources, and we do have resources in Australia to help someone who wants to harm kids or thinks about harming kids. We do have resources. So, yeah.
Because it's a really sad thing to think that, people, whether that happened to them when they were children and that's in them, whether they're acting on it or not, but there would be, people that don't want to be that way.
Yeah.
And
100%.
how difficult that would be to go and get help.
It's a very small amount of counsellors and psychologists that can deal with that.
Right.
And so in Australia, and we don't have, so when a sex offender's actually caught and they are, sentenced, they actually don't have a mandatory program that they have to do to get out.
Wow.
So they can go through their 5 or 6 years of jail and not even step foot in some form of counselling or therapy.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I know.
That's
most people think
wild.
that, because if they put their hand up and say, I'm a sex offender in jail, they'll probably get bashed, right?
For sure.
So they don't actually have a safe place to get help in jail. Sometimes when they get out on parole, they will be mandatorily given some counselling. But again, it's a tick and flick box thing where they don't actually have to engage. They can just turn up and go home.
Yeah.
With any change, it doesn't matter if you're an alcoholic, you've got substance abuse problems, you need to want to change. So there is some programs. There's actually a really cool program in Western Australia called Safe Care. There's now the Stop It Now Australia, and there's now the Australian government has got a program that they're starting for prevention of sexual abuse. But one of the key points I think that people need to realise is that pornography is grooming sex offenders. So what we now know is through the research is that especially because we're seeing young men who are now becoming sex offenders much earlier. We used to see sex offenders in their 40s and 50s, older, but now we've got, unfortunately the downloading of child abuse material and child exploitation material. And as young as 18, we had one in Western Australia just a couple of weeks ago who was 16 and 17 producing and distributing child exploitation material. Now, no, I don't believe that most people go down that road without being groomed into it through the pornography they watch. And we know that pornography starts off in general pornography, then it goes into violent and bestiality, and then it becomes child abuse material because of the way that porn addiction happens. So I think they're being groomed into it.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, not all of them, but a percentage of them.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I know, a bit heavy for your topic.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, where do I go with that information?
Okay, Kristi, let's move on.
Holy shit. I'm going to totally switch lanes a little bit. And we met at a funnels course, which was just so wild that this is how I met Kristi. As we were at a funnels course, and then you came and chatted to me about, I must have kept putting my hand up or something.
You were talking about the website hosting platform that we use.
Right, because we both use Kajabi.
Yeah.
And then you came and chatted with me, and then we were just like, we're like, we have to go back into the class, but we probably could have just sat there and chatted for 100%. Forever. And I find it so interesting that you have taken this and turned it into a business, which is so incredible because you're able to help so many people and make so much impact while also still, creating something for yourself and your life. And how has that been, taking your work like that and making it into a business? How is the business going?
First of all, never ever thought that I would be here. Honestly, I thought I was going to be in the police forever. And then when that stopped, I thought I was going to be a personal trainer. Okay. And then, I'm a qualified personal trainer. And then when that sort of COVID happened and I was like, what do I do now? I never ever thought I would be here, being on TV and radio and being on podcasts. No idea. I've just kind of said yes to a lot of things.
Yeah.
I felt the fear and did it anyway. Is kind of like fake it till you make it, kind of been my motto since I left the police. But so when the business sort of stuck its head up, I was kind of torn between, going down the not-for-profit route and being like part of a not-for-profit, or being a contractor to a not-for-profit and presenting their material. Or, when the book kind of came out, I was working with a not-for-profit and another company and presenting their material, and it just didn't feel right. And it didn't sit, I didn't feel like I was following my true path. So when my book did get released, I was like, right, I thought 100,000 books would sell in a week. And when it was like just my friends and family,
Yes.
I was like, oh. And someone said to me, books don't make you money. And I was like, unless you're like Mel Robbins. And I was like, oh, okay. So I have to actually do something with this. And then I just started. I think when I first started, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. I just thought, I've got to tell people.
Yeah.
It's tweaked and tweaked. I created these online resources. I've got a course for early childhood educators now. I've got a parent membership now. So it's just sort of grown to where I felt, when I sit with it, I go, is this the right path? Is this what I want? And someone said to me early on, don't start how you don't want to continue. If you don't want to be talking at schools in 10 years' time, don't start in schools. And so I kind of took that advice and went, okay, I actually don't want to talk to schools. I don't want to talk to school kids. I know they've got this, like what they need is supportive parents. Yeah. So that's where I've put my focus now. And so it didn't start off great. My husband, my wonderful husband, who has been my biggest supporter, believes in me more than anyone I know. And holds me together, because I still cry weekly about what I hear, and but he was the one who said, just give it all you've got. And so it's been 3 years since then, and in the last 12 months, I guess that's where I've had the greatest growth. I've grown to over 100,000 followers on Instagram. I think it's close to 76,000 on TikTok, and I'm being booked out week by week for webinars. I'm going to Sydney at the end of the month. I was just been in the Gold Coast, or Sunshine Coast. So it's just kind of like I backed myself, and it's just going now.
That's amazing.
It's taken 3 years though.
Yes. It does take that long to get something off.
Yeah.
And especially when you're not really sure where it's going or what you're doing with it. And it definitely takes that trial and error. And sometimes you might start something and go, that's not quite right. Scrap it. Yeah. Like we do that all the time. Like we've got, you've got new ideas all the time, and I'll start this. And then all of a sudden you're like, why did I do this? I hate doing this.
You don't know until you've done it though.
Yes. Yeah. And I think just getting comfortable with change, and that it's constantly going to evolve as you, I guess, see where you really fit in and how you can really help people. And it's not something that's like, by written of how to do this job for you by a whole bunch of other people. Like, who is your inspiration to
I'm kind of like, there is a few people in my industry, not many, like there's a handful of us, and they all have their own paths. Some of them work in schools, some of them are working remote communities, some of them are working are not-for-profits. So there's not as many of us that you can sort of like model off of. So I'm just basically trailblazing my own path here, and reminding myself that, early on I had very little confidence in this. I was like, do I really want to be the face of this? I actually thought that it was going to be a company and I wasn't going to be the face of it. And now I'm just transitioning all of my branding over to a personal brand, because people don't know my company. They know me, Kristi McVee. And it's so wild to me that that's now who I'm the face of it. I'm the voice of it. So I guess for me personally, in business, I haven't got any inspirations because there is none, and I'm just doing this. I'm just being authentic and true. I sit with a lot of decisions and go, does this feel right? And I just go with what feels right. And, sometimes I get it wrong, but I've also changed over the last few years as a business owner from, oh my gosh, I failed, to, oh, that was a good experiment. And, I learned something from that. I like trying to take the pressure off myself when something doesn't work out. There's been things that I've released and I've shared, and I'm like, oh no, I don't know if I'm actually ready for this. You're never ready.
No.
And so, just.
That's the same even when we've released our digital products, and, that time where you actually press go on something and you just keep making it better though. You
Yeah.
know, like you keep going back and making it better, and you just have to start. Like it's never going to be
Perfect.
perfect.
But I think we put too much pressure on ourselves as business owners. And I have to keep reminding myself that, and yourself or any business owner, you know more about this than the next person. So for me, I guess I get called the Australia's leading child safety expert, and I go, how is that possible? I'm just little old me with, 10 years experience in police. I don't, and, Sunrise called me their child safety expert the other day on TV, and I was like, oh, so I don't know how this
really
has
cool.
happened.
Well, I think because you know your shit. It's like you only become an expert by doing the basics over and over and over again.
Exactly.
And that's what you're doing, and you're doing it well, whereas people don't always concentrate on just getting to learn the basics, and they never become an expert in that. And it's super cool to see that you've done that and become that that person. And you're an incredible speaker. Like you can talk really, really well.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that does help. Like you're able to get the message across to people.
Yeah.
And that is going to help so many people, because a lot of the times it's just like some people might know the education or they know it, but they don't know how to say it to other people.
Yeah.
And when I watch your content, I'm like, for instance, I wasn't super against like putting my kids' faces on social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
But hearing it in a different way, in a different language, not different language, but, a different way has changed that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really, that's been a bit of an eye-opener. And I've just heard it in a different way and resonated more with me, because I think probably not having somebody that is your inspiration, because you are forced to be so authentic. You cannot be not authentic because you have nobody to copy.
Yeah.
And so your content is always like just something we haven't seen before, which is
that's a great that's amazing to hear, because it's so sometimes I just feel like not saying anything, and I'm like, I'm not in the mood to do this.
Yeah.
So, it's hard, it's draining for all business owners, but especially when I might have come off like someone bagging me or bad mouthing me, or I've got videos out there from yesterday that I said, about school camps.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think that they're necessary or needed in primary school anymore.
Oh, I loved that one.
Yeah.
I was like,
but there's people making reels off of that saying she's spreading
Yeah.
misinformation. And I'm like, well, no, it was my opinion.
Yeah. Like, I don't want my kids going to school camps.
No.
Really. But
it's not necessary or needed for most kids today.
For primary school.
No.
Yeah.
But, getting back to like the whole authentic stuff, I just think that I really know myself, and so I sit with myself and I go, what would I want to know as a parent, and how can I give this information so that it I don't want to shock and awe everyone all the time, but I also want it to seem like we're a team. Like, I'm part of your team. I want you to succeed in parenting. I want your kids to come home every day and feel safe. I want them to be safe. I don't want anyone's children to ever be harmed in any way, shape or form. But my daughter always reminds me of the fact that, Mum, no one can promise that. But the best thing to do is to make sure that if something does happen, you've got the tools to help them get your work through it, whether it's bullying at school, whether it's a bad day, whether it's they've got a diagnosis or a medical problem. My daughter said to me, trauma creates resilience, Mum. And I was like, who are you?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you've told me that school's traumatized you your whole life. She's like, yeah, but I'm very resilient. I keep showing up. And I'm like, I think my 17-year-old, she's getting to that age where she's about to turn 18 and she's thinking she knows everything.
Yeah.
But she's pretty smart.
Yeah. It teaches you things sometimes.
Oh, big time.
Which is really cool.
I think we can learn from everyone in this space.
And you're not ever going to be, like, the bigger you get and your account gets bigger and bigger. I think you had about half the amount when I met you earlier in the year, which is wild. I remember you said a good tip was just to post a lot whenever you go overseas, because then you create, like, more people from around that area, which doesn't work for a business like mine, being a hair salon in a local area, because, I don't need Hong Kong to be following me.
Correct.
But Yeah, it was interesting, but I do think you're going to have people that aren't going to agree with you at any level, no matter what you're doing. Like, you cannot avoid that.
No.
And I think, yeah, just how authentic you are and how you know how you are is great, because you're going to attract the right people, and you're going to attract
Yeah.
people that, believe in your message. And yeah, you're one of those businesses that you not one of those businesses or one of those people that it's like you're doing such an amazing thing that it's hard to believe that you'd ever have any doubt in yourself, because
Uh,
it's such an incredible thing that you're doing.
yeah, I have a lot of doubt, but that's just my own trauma. So
Yeah.
I just, I smack that aside when I
Yeah.
have to,
We
because
all have
it's bigger.
trauma,
Yeah,
don't we?
exactly. We all have trauma. My daughter
Yeah.
said it makes us stronger. So,
Yeah.
and I just smack it aside because the mission is bigger than me. So,
Yeah.
and that's something I remember all the time. And one of the things I wanted to say is comparison is the thief of all joy. So when I compare myself to others, I'm stealing the joy from what I'm doing, or the joy from helping people. So
Yeah.
about 2 years ago, I decided to stop following other accounts like mine. I stopped I stopped comparing myself to others and what they were doing. I just rode my own boat. And since then, that is where it's sort of taken off.
It's so freeing. I did that myself. I think it was earlier in the year, where just anybody that I just and that didn't align with
Mhm.
my values, I just got rid of them. I just
Yeah.
even blocked them, deleted them. I'm like, I don't want to see their stuff. I
Yep.
don't want to feel like they're watching me all the time.
Yep.
I'm like, why do I feel like I need to share this space with you? You know?
Yeah.
I do not consent to you
Yeah.
sharing my social media.
Yeah. You don't
And
need
yeah,
to.
and they can still go and find it or whatever. But it was just like getting rid of the noise that
Mm.
was constantly taking and making you feel having that imposter syndrome
Yeah.
and all that was good. So what is next on the cards for you?
Oh, so many ideas. It's crazy. So obviously, I've got the conversations with kids' body safety cards. They're going to be printed. I've got an early childhood educators course to help with red flags and warning signs. It's so funny that, well, not funny at all, but I created that in February, and then my husband got sick with cancer, and so I had already created that, and then all of this stuff happened, this year with regards to early childhood education and abuse in education. So I already had that course lined up, so I've released that now. I've got the parent membership, which is just going better and better, and it's only like I don't want parents to have to pay a lot, so I make everything very affordable. Like the cards are $11 downloadable. So there's going to be more speaking, more webinars, more probably whatever ideas I get from like above the universe, whoever. I wake up at 3:00 in the morning with most of my ideas and go, got to go create this. So I've got an online safety guide for parents to help them talk to their kids. Same principles as the body safety cards.
Cool.
With online safety, I actually don't know which is next, but there's lots in the play.
And is your husband's is he going through chemo at the moment?
He's got stage 3 melanoma, but he's melanoma free at the moment, but he's going through immunotherapy. He's going to be fine.
Okay.
We laugh about the fact that, he just wanted a year off work.
Yeah.
So he's taking a year off to go through treatment, but he should be all A-okay,
And
hopefully.
just carrying your handbag everywhere.
Carrying my
He's out there
handbag,
right
yeah.
now
He keeps
with
coming
your
with
bag.
me
I
on
love-
trips. He thinks that he wants me to like try and get a job like a trip overseas. So he's like, I can carry bags. I'm very good at driving.
Yeah. So he has to come everywhere just to be like, I work here too.
Yeah, but he doesn't.
I love that. That must have been really hard to stay motivated, finding that out and going through that.
Yeah, it kind of took the wind out of my sails for a little bit. But I think because it's interesting, he's kind of, having this year off and he's home, and he does get very unwell very quickly. So he'll be fine 1 minute and then next thing he's crashing. But I found motivation because I don't know, I could do this even if I never made a cent. But obviously I would call myself a social enterprise where, what I'm working on is for the betterment of society. Yeah. But, I love what I do. Some days it gets me down because obviously some of the stories are pretty heavy and I hear a lot of them every week. But I'm still tweaking how to manage my energy.
Mhm.
But, I'm glad that he's home because he used to work FIFO.
Yeah.
He was fly in, fly out, and he's worked in mining for a long time. And I think he might want to change careers after this anyway. It's a great opportunity for our family.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so we're looking at it from the
Silver
positives.
linings. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
You're welcome.
We will leave all your details for Kristi in the show notes so that if you want to jump on and see what she has to offer, her conversation starters, and all the things that you have on there will be in the bottom in the link. And yeah, all the best. Thank you again so much. What you do for families. I hope you never stop understanding how much you're doing for us. And you're literally saving people's children.
Thank you, Charlie.
It's pretty amazing.
I appreciate that.
Thanks. Don't make me cry.